You didn't leave without a reason. Something pushed you out the door, and nobody around you noticed. That's the part that hurts most, not the leaving itself, but the silence after it. Nobody asked why you disappeared. Nobody came looking for you, and somewhere deep inside you knew. You already expected that response, because this wasn't your first time. You had pulled away before, quietly, carefully, without announcement, and each time it got easier. Each time the door closed faster. Here's what nobody talks about. Cutting people off isn't about anger. It's not about being antisocial either. It's about something far more exhausting. It's about finally running out of energy to pretend, running out of patience to explain, running out of hope that things change. You gave people so many chances, more chances than they deserved, honestly. You showed up when they didn't. You remembered things they forgot completely. You checked on people who never checked back. And one day, something quietly shifted. Not dramatically, not with a fight, just a slow and silent realization. These people were never really present. They were just comfortable with you. And comfort is not the same as connection. That difference changed everything for you. But here's where it gets interesting. Think about the last real conversation you had. Not small talk, not surface-level catching up. A real conversation where someone truly listened, where someone asked the right question, where you felt genuinely understood afterwards. How long ago was that? Exactly. That absence is not accidental. It's the slow accumulation of moments where you reached out and got nothing back, where you shared something important and felt invisible, where you realized the connection was one-directional, and your brain quietly started keeping score. Not to be petty, not to be difficult, but because your nervous system was protecting you, building a case for why distance was safer. And eventually the case became strong enough, so you stepped back, then further back, then completely out of the picture. But here's where psychology gets fascinating. This pattern starts much earlier than you think, much earlier than most people realize. You didn't learn to disconnect recently. You learned it as a child, when the environment around you was unpredictable, when emotions around you felt unsafe, when needing someone led to disappointment. Your brain made a very logical decision. If closeness causes pain, create distance. If people leave, leave them first. Psychologists call this protective withdrawal, a survival response, not a character flaw. Your nervous system learned one simple rule: disconnection equals safety, connection equals risk. And that rule followed you everywhere, into every friendship you eventually abandoned, into every relationship that felt suffocating, into every group that slowly drained you. But here's the strange part. You didn't cut people off randomly. You have a pattern, a specific one. You gave everything first, then you disappeared without warning, because that's how the cycle works. You overgive until you're completely empty, then you vanish to recover alone. Then slowly you let someone back in. Then the whole cycle starts again. Sound familiar? Psychologists call this the give and collapse pattern. It's common in people who learned early that their needs came last, that being needed meant being loved. So you kept giving to stay connected, and when giving became too painful, you cut the connection entirely. Not because you stopped caring, but because caring had cost you everything. And here's what makes this painful. The people you cut off rarely understood. From their side, you just disappeared. No explanation, no warning, no goodbye. They thought they did something wrong, but you were just protecting yourself from a pain they didn't even see, from an exhaustion they never acknowledged. That invisibility hurt most, not the disconnection itself, but the fact that you had to disconnect just to be heard by yourself. And that's a specific kind of loneliness, the loneliness of being surrounded by people, but feeling completely unknown by all of them. Like you were performing a version of yourself, a version they were comfortable with, but not the version that actually existed. So you stopped performing, and when the performance ended, so did the relationships, which told you everything you needed to know. They were never connected to the real you. They were connected to the role you played. Now here's where things get deeper. Solitude after cutting people off feels different. It doesn't feel lonely at first. It feels like finally breathing again, like taking off armor you forgot you were wearing. The silence feels clean and safe. Your energy slowly starts returning. Your mind stops managing everyone else's emotions. And for a while, that feels like healing. But psychology reveals something important here. That relief has a quiet expiration date. After the relief comes the emptiness, the wondering if anyone noticed your absence, the scrolling through contacts and closing the app, the feeling of being free, but also invisible. That's not healing, that's hiding, and there's a difference between the two. Healing means you process what happened. Hiding means you just avoid it longer. And most people who cut everyone off are hiding from one specific thing, the fear of being truly seen and still not being chosen. Because that's the deepest wound underneath all of this. You didn't cut people off because you hate connection. You cut them off because you wanted real connection, and what you were getting felt like a performance, a shallow exchange, a transactional relationship. And you'd rather have silence than a connection that makes you feel more alone. That's not coldness, that's standards. But here's something worth sitting with. The pattern of cutting people off protects you from bad connections, but it also trains you to exit before the good ones have a chance to form. Because real connection takes time. It requires staying through the awkward moments, through the misunderstandings, through the discomfort. And if your default response to discomfort is disappearing, you will keep cutting off people who might have actually been worth staying for. That's the cost nobody talks about. Not the people who deserve to be cut off, but the ones who didn't, the ones who were just beginning to understand you, the ones who needed a little more time. And here's the final insight. The version of connection you're looking for does exist, but it requires one uncomfortable thing from you: staying long enough to be known, not perfectly, not safely, just honestly. Because the walls that protect you now are the same walls that will keep the right people permanently outside. You don't have to cut the walls down, just leave one door slightly open for the right person at the right time. That's not weakness, that's the bravest thing you can do.